Brandon Evanich, who is leading up IXBMedia. IXBMedia is helping e-commerce businesses to scale to 7 or 8 figures through paid traffic and sales funnels. So he's helping them to really get the most of the traffic that they're getting to their pages. So Brandon, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for that.
Awesome. So tell us about IXBMedia. What is it all about in your own words?
Absolutely. So IXBMedia is very much so about fixing the e-commerce clients' current marketing problems. We like to take a broken system, identify where it's broken, fix it, and make it hyper profitable. So that's really our main focus with every single project that we take on.
Awesome. Can you give us an example of what would be typical clients that you would be working with? Like, where do you find those broken systems, basically?
Absolutely. So we like to lead by example and sort of get our foot in the door with proof of concept. The majority of our clients actually come through one of our own sales funnels.
Mm-hmm.
The current one that we've found a lot of success in is a case study funnel. So it's me sort of explaining the logic behind, paid traffic, how to make it not just work, but, work more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is a brief interview with a client of mine, sort of explaining her experience with us. And from there, they have the opportunity to move forward with us. And I apologize about that in the background. But
no worries.
Yeah, that's really how they mainly come to us. We don't do too much direct outreach. It's really more so individuals that find us through our own funnels.
Very interesting. And in which type of verticals would the businesses be like? Obviously, it's primarily e-commerce companies, so it seems like that you would be working with. Is there certain verticals that stand out to you that, benefit most from your services?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question. So what I have found, there are two kind of particular clients that we have gotten phenomenal results for. And the first is digital products. These are your educational courses, any sort of higher ticket educational experience that you could be selling to a person. So there's those. And also, we really like to work with companies that sell a little bit higher ticket, not necessarily like an educational product, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's got a decent margin on their product. It's much harder to sell, 10,000 units of a $5 product as it is, vice versa. So really any sort of client that is selling a more, not necessarily luxury, but definitely higher margin item.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Very interesting. Cool. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how and where you're sort of supporting those type of businesses. Sort of, if along the funnel, maybe you can tell me, where do you start and where do you stop? Do you bring in the traffic? Do you help converting the traffic? Like, where do you step in usually?
Absolutely. So we are a bit different, and I like to always go with a full approach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of agencies and a lot of companies out there that are great at getting traffic, but it's the actual nurturing through the rest of the funnel
Mm-hmm.
where you see them lose a lot of good quality leads. And also, at certain points in the funnel, you have a clear understanding of how that person got there and why they're there. And a lot of individuals miss out on that sort of data, which is extremely important when it comes to conversions and closing. So we start with the traffic itself and hyper defining the audiences. We split test pretty rigorously in the beginning, whether it's based on interest or demographics. It really just sort of depends on what we happen to be marketing for. But we don't want to send anyone to the website that's not already shown quite a keen interest in our product and our solution for them. And we take them through the whole nurturing process through the rest of the funnel. And along the way, they get a lot of value-based assets and things that don't really cost our clients anything. It's just simply filling in some additional information and, just some very helpful things that help them make this final purchase decision, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. And what would be sort of a final conversion goal that you usually would be working towards? Is that like an actual purchase of this, high ticket products? Is that, consultations that being set up with the experts, I'm assuming, in the educational spend? Like, is it a typical an e-commerce goal that you work towards too, or more like sort of, a lead generation or booking case a goal?
Absolutely. So it does depend, obviously, on whether it's just, sort of basic e-commerce or more intellectual educational services. We do obviously capture leads and run pretty aggressive retargeting campaigns for those, but the end goal is always the conversion.
Mhm.
And this is something we sort of learned when we began. We used to service dentists and chiropractors, service-based companies that were located in a certain spot. And we could get people to take offers and become leads all day.
Mhm.
But the issue was them actually showing up and taking the offer, becoming a part of the practice, and becoming a patient.
Mhm.
So from that knowledge, we really got good at it with e-commerce. Okay, we've got a lead now. Now our job sort of begins really to get them past that finish line of becoming a conversion. So everything we do is very much so geared towards that and doing it at an efficient rate, which starts obviously at the top of the funnel and getting the right traffic through it.
Very interesting. Since you brought up sort of your history in lead generation businesses and you emerged working towards with a lot of e-commerce businesses, how would you sort of describe the difference in terms of their attitude towards conversions? Like, where do you have to do more education, or where is the sort of the focus on conversions more stronger?
Absolutely. So this is truly what we've learned. The sort of joy of e-commerce is that once a product is sold, it's converted, it's done pretty much from there. They can record that as, yes, this was a successful campaign for this particular person. And that's really what e-commerce cares about, because a lead to an e-commerce through retargeting and other marketing expenses, they sort of do become an expense if they never
Hmm.
convert. And that is something that's very, very, bad about e-commerce. But on the other side, to like a service-based business or something like that, leads to them can be nurtured quite a bit longer. And that happens to do with the geographical location itself.
Hmm.
These people, unless if they move, then it's pretty much worthless anyways. But being in their community, being actually physically close to these individuals, their leads are worth far more to them, because their nurturing process after that and their follow-ups don't necessarily have to be an expense. It could just be a little bit more brand awareness in their own community. And
Yep.
so that's sort of where I see quite a bit difference between how valuable a lead is on either
Hmm.
side. On e-commerce, I think it's less valuable because you could run retargeting campaigns and get more conversions, but at the end of the day, that should cost you.
Yep.
On
Yep.
this side, at least those leads can be nurtured way less expensively. And that's sort of my wholesome answer here for this.
Oh, very good. Can you tell me how you're thinking about winning more goal completions, might it be the e-commerce side or the lead side, from the website, right? Once you have somebody there, and you mentioned you're already rigorously so trying to get only, let's say, let's call it pre-qualified traffic to the page. What have you been learning is, a few things that you have to sort of suggest again and again, maybe to your clients so that they can actually make the most of the traffic on their page.
Absolutely. So here's one that sort of always shocks me that individuals don't put a lot more time into, and it's cart abandonments.
Hmm.
That is a very, very warm, borderline hot lead. They've made it to your website. They've probably likely scrolled around. They found the product they were looking for. They were this close to buying it, and then they leave.
Hmm.
Those are individuals that should be conversions. And even through some very, very convenient tools and a large host like Shopify, you could retarget those people with that product through their Facebook Messenger, through SMS, through a variety of other ways that are very inexpensive to you. And that would help really capture those conversions. So it really comes down to just like the small stuff. Once you understand the company, the customer journey and how far they've come already and where they've been, the
Hmm.
picture becomes a lot clearer as to, is this individual really worth us investing more money in for marketing? There are a lot of things you could do in the beginning that are clear indicators as to whether, is this person really in the market right now to buy this, or are they maybe just sort of window shopping, if you will, or are they just here because we targeted a bit poorly?
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. I want to bring up as a follow-up question to this, in the conversations that you're having with sort of e-commerce marketeers or the owners, depending on obviously the size of the business, um, do they bring up themselves the topic of conversion rate optimization, or is it something that you bring to the table as a conversation? Because it's, we've had very different situations in the interviews. I'm curious, what's your experience?
Absolutely. It does depend on the business owner themselves. Now, I have worked with companies that do most of their e-commerce on the large retail side as opposed
Hmm.
to paid traffic,
Hmm.
like companies like Amazon and Sears and Walmart.com and all of those platforms. They really don't understand the whole conversion optimization thing as well because all of their traffic comes to them. It's very simple. They do a little bit of AMS advertising, a little bit of keyword optimization,
Hmm.
but that's really all they're competing on is keywords in most of these large retailers.
Hmm.
And when they make that transition to, sort of a sort of avoiding the allowance fees and some of the other cons of selling on these big ticket websites and doing their own private website with paid traffic, they really don't know where to start because they've never had to nurture traffic themselves before.
Yep.
But I also have clients on the other side who are sort of like a single individual drop shipper who just happens to be very great at it. They understand how to source excellent products that perform well in the market. And they seem to be a lot more keen, a lot more in the know about optimizing, conversions because they understand, yes, traffic costs money. It
Yep.
could cost a whole bunch. And if we're not making the most out of it, this business could fail very easily.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for me, it's really depended on really the owner themselves and their actual knowledge with the paid traffic side of digital marketing.
Makes complete sense. Um, Last question, sort of, how you're working sort of with your client set before we're switching over, learning about you a little bit more. Can you tell me sort of how would you work with your clients sort of to optimize the maybe just in rough words, how would you working on optimizing that you're not just generating traffic, you know, but actually bringing those leads and those signups? Like, what is something, maybe a few key learnings that you can share with the listeners? What is very important for you to do when you start working with a client?
Absolutely. So the first thing we do is analyze what the heck they have going on right now, whether they have a actual funnel or if they're simply just pulling broad traffic from social media and taking them to a website, right? I like intent with everything. I want to know the customer's intent. Why did they click on our ad? Why did they watch our video? Why did they come to our website? Why did they come to this particular spot on our website, etc. So what we do is we look and say, look, here's a funnel. There's some holes in it. The first thing we have to do is patch those holes.
Hmm.
If we're getting people to this website and maybe we're not tracking the right actions that are important to us,
Hmm.
that's a big spot where a lot of people go wrong because they don't necessarily understand how to set up an appropriate pixel or Google Analytics to track the important things we need.
Yep.
In addition to that, really just making the customer journey shorter helps quite a bit of the time too. I know a lot of companies will sort of utilize an advertisement to bring a customer to like their homepage. And if the intent of the ad was for a particular product or a particular solution, it's far easier for the consumer to just be taken straight to that page to buy it, right? And it's really just simple things like that. For me, I want to know why our traffic is doing what it's doing at each level of the funnel and each part of the website. Because even if they happen to leave in the beginning, and we know that they came here for that particular product, they picked an ad for that particular product, we can retarget them with that ad instead of five other campaigns we may be running that are absolutely not relevant to them, and now we're wasting money.
Yep.
We're losing conversions on top of that, and we're just less efficient than we could be. And I apologize, that was a bit long-winded, but
No, no,
that's
no. Very
just a
good.
couple of things here.
One quick follow-up on that. You brought up the intent and the why quite a bit. So, what's your way to understand the intent? Because, a lot of data, a lot of quantity data, quantitative data will tell you a lot about the what, right? How do you
Hmm.
get to the why?
It's a bit tricky, and for me, it really comes with understanding the audience. We are extremely rigorous when we're doing our research on the audience itself. And it's not just, I don't know, perhaps we have a supplement company right now, and we'll use them as an example here.
Hmm.
So who uses supplements. It could be anyone that goes to the gym, anyone that wants to increase their health. The audience is extraordinarily broad,
Mhm.
right? Now, this is a veteran-owned company, so we want to get hyper specific with not only who's going to buy our stuff, but who's going to connect with our brand, who is going to relate to why this company was started. And I think the better that you understand your company's why or your client's why,
Mhm.
the better you can find customers that share that same value. And when those are the same, conversions are almost effortless in a way because you're bringing not only a great solution to them, but you're bringing like a brand they could believe in. And I think a company like Apple does this very well. They're far more than just a computer. There's a lot of aligning whys for excellence and for some of the other things they advertise. But that's sort of how I see it. That's how I like to measure intent. It really comes down to the audience and who is not just a customer that will buy, but who's the best customer that will buy and can relate to who we are.
Okay. Very, very good. One last question before we're jumping into learning about you, and that might be a little bit of a tricky one and difficult to answer. But I'm curious because you're particularly positioned in that way to work on high ticket products in many cases. What is typically a conversion rate that makes you happy? That is a successful conversion rate. Like where, because there is a lot of data out there, a lot of ideas of what is a good conversion rate. Like sort of in the scenario in the world where you are working, what is the conversion rate? Or how do you think about that question?
That's an excellent question. And that is a tricky one. You're right. This is sort of how I approach it. Now, if this is, like I said, we like to work with sort of mature companies in the market. They already have a bit of proof of concept, proof of product in the market. And that gives us a lot of initial data to work with, which is very, very important. Usually, I like to differentiate conversion rates for each type of traffic we're dealing with. If this is like a retargeting campaign for individuals that have bought from us, I want that conversion rate to be high.
Mhm.
Typically, you know, and it really does, it depends on the cost of what we're doing, but really, I think a good conversion rate is anywhere from the like 2 to 10% range for high ticket. And as we build a more efficient system and sales funnel, obviously we can scale that to an absurd amount. But the way that we actually do that, I think, is far more important. And it really does start with the traffic. And this is the way I view this, right? Social media, the more data points, the more individuals that we can give it to go find, the better. And that's why when you start at the top of the funnel, if you sort of help it out in the beginning, if you get as much clear, concise data as to who your ideal customer is in the beginning, conversion rates are a lot different at the bottom of that funnel, far different. And what's great is it makes your system more efficient from the beginning, as opposed to paying for a bunch of bad traffic. And now you basically have to sort of start from the beginning. So I sort of like to put clean data in order to get clean data out. And that's how you really get these great conversion rates to where you're sending such an ideal customer through this thing. They're just ready to buy. They have the money to do it. And, right now is the perfect time, really.
Very good. And I think that's a very interesting answer and very, very sort of concise answer on that. Okay, so let's switch to learning about you personally as a leader of the business in itself. Sort of what type of content do you consume and how do you educate yourself further to sort of, continuously, step up your own, let's say, performance?
Absolutely. I have a handful of mentors. The original one that taught me, his name is Iman Gadzi. He is an incredible digital marketing agency in the UK.
Hmm.
And he was sort of the one that began teaching me about this. So he also services e-commerce companies, and he is a great role model for me to do that. He runs far more paid traffic and funnels than I do for himself. So I like to sort of model after what he's doing. He's been extraordinarily successful, and he educates students how to do this too. Other individuals I love for good, concise data, individuals like Gary Vee for content. I love Shay Rowbottom on LinkedIn. I think her video content is incredible, and the way she delivers her messages are great. I really like Neil Patel for some of the more like technical side of, how do we understand data. Other just large companies as well, like Sprout Social and Hootsuite. I find all of their stuff very, very useful. But really, I try to stay relevant in the market. digital marketing changes on a dime constantly. You know, all of a sudden there's a tweak to an algorithm and everyone's like, ah. So for me, it's, you know, LinkedIn, lots of LinkedIn digital marketing hashtags. And I have quite a beautiful network on there now that I converse with all the time about ideas. Like recently, I've been getting into a lot of conversations about TikTok for
Mhm.
e-commerce.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like a hybrid youthful Instagram and Vine. And it's this very weird platform right now to advertise efficiently on for e-commerce. But I've really been trying to dig down and find ways to do that. But yeah, really just I like to be very broad in my approach to learning about this because there's so many strategies and different platforms, and I find them all very incredible, especially if we could find combinations that just work amazingly.
Awesome. Cool. Since we're coming to the end of the interview, I would like to jump into the rapid fire questions.
Perfect.
Usually that's like a, one sentence, one word answer. Are you ready for those?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So for your company, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word marketing operations?
Slack.
Very good.
I have an international team. We communicate through Slack. It makes life great.
What comes to the mind when I say the word sales operations?
Paid traffic and sales funnels.
What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
We are focused on taking advantage of the current advertising climate and the economy. Ad costs have went down, and we are really trying to hit the gas pedal on that.
Yep. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you want to have fixed for your clients today?
I would really like to fix. That's a great question. I'd really like to fix bad traffic. I would like social media to get a little bit more granular as to who are the best people to show these ads to, as opposed to kind of always being fairly broad. I feel like we can niche down a lot more, but that gets into some ethical dilemmas and things. But
Get it. Makes complete sense. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
honestly, potentially losing a team member. I've built a incredible team over the last 3 years, and it just we work so well together. It's like a dream team for me. So I do get nervous sometimes that there's
Mhm.
so many opportunities right now that I may lose one.
I see. I see. And what's one advice that you would give yourself if today would be the first day of you running XP Media?
Whew, that is quite a question. So my advice
That's
to
why it's the
myself, if
last
I were
one.
to start this, uh, if I were to give some advice to myself starting this now, it would be this. I would get very, very good at a single kind of client doing a single kind of service, like just Facebook ads or just Facebook content marketing. Because when I started, I tried to learn everything. It's sort of the person I am. I like to have a very, very wholesome understanding of everything. And oh my goodness, it took a lot of time. I made a lot of mistakes and I tried to do it all myself. And this is the biggest takeaway. Bring people smarter than you into this company, because that is how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to make an excellent team and give your clients the best results that you possibly can.
It's a very, very good answer. Very wise. Learned with hard sweat and work, I think. So,
Absolutely.
Brent, I appreciated you being part of Pathmark Presents today, that you showed us a little bit about your world with IXB Media and how you've been sort of growing the team, holding on to valuable team members, and also, yeah, just you sharing your insights on all your perspective on conversion rates. So appreciate for taking the time.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.